An hour into the game, running perfect, then the fans howl and the frame rate just sags, stutters. Same settings, nothing new open, suddenly it's chugging. Let it cool 5 minutes and it's smooth again, like nothing happened. The slowdown comes and goes with the heat. So what does temperature have to do with speed? Your computer is doing this on purpose. It would rather be slow than let one thing happen. It slows itself down, deliberately. Buried in the chip is a tiny thermometer, and the moment the temperature climbs too high, the chip turns its own speed down, on purpose. It would rather run slow than get 1 degree hotter, because the alternative is cooking itself permanently. That stutter an hour into the game, that was the chip choosing to survive instead of perform. Which leaves a stranger question. Why does going fast make it hot at all? A chip has no moving parts, nothing rubs, nothing grinds. So where does the heat even come from? It comes from switching. A chip is billions of microscopic switches, transistors, flicking between on and off, billions of times every second. That's what the gigahertz on the box counts. Every flip takes a tiny jolt of electricity, and every jolt leaves a sliver of heat behind. One flip on its own? Nothing. You could never measure it. But multiply it out, billions of switches times billions of flips a second in a chip the size of your fingernail. All those invisible slivers add up into tens of watts pouring off something smaller than a postage stamp. The faster it runs, the more it flips, the more heat it makes. Which raises the real question, how hot is too hot? Silicon has a hard limit. Push a chip past about 100 degrees Celsius and the transistors stop behaving. That clean on-off switching smears into errors. Hold it there and you damage the chip for good. So the designers draw a line. Right around 100 degrees, the chip starts protecting itself. And if that isn't enough, if the temperature keeps climbing anyway, there's a second line, about 25 degrees higher, near 125, where the chip just cuts the power. A hard shutdown. Better a black screen than a dead processor. But it almost never comes to that, because long before the shutdown line, the chip has already started fighting the heat down. And its one trick works strangely well. You already know its move. Turn the speed down. But why does that work so well? The heat a chip makes follows one clean rule. It depends on the clock, how fast it's switching, and on the voltage pushing those switches, but not equally. Speed counts once, voltage counts squared. And they're chained. To run faster, a chip needs more voltage. Run slower, and it can pull the voltage back down. So when the chip drops its clock, the voltage drops with it. And because voltage counts squared, a small cut in speed buys a huge cut in heat. Slow the clock about 15%, and you don't lose 15% of the heat. You lose roughly a third. Give up a little speed, shed a lot of heat. So if slowing down is such a bargain, why does your laptop ever feel fast? Because chips are allowed to cheat, for a little while. Hit it with real work and the chip sprints. It jumps to a high speed and throws off heat faster than the cooling can carry away. It gets away with it because heat takes time to build. The metal around the chip soaks it up first, like a cold pan a second after you light the burner. That sprint has a name, turbo, and it lasts seconds. But the heat keeps stacking, the temperature keeps climbing toward that line, and the instant it arrives, the sprint is over. The chip settles to the only speed it can hold, the pace where heat leaving matches heat arriving. That step down from the sprint to the sustainable pace is exactly the slowdown you felt an hour in. The first 10 minutes were a promise your laptop couldn't keep, and nothing breaks that promise faster than a laptop. A desktop has room, a big tower of a cooler, fat copper pipes, a fan the size of your palm moving a river of air. It hauls heat away almost as fast as the chip can make it, so it holds that sprint far longer. Your laptop has none of that. The same chip is crammed into something the thickness of a pencil, cooled by a fan barely wider than a coin. Nowhere for the heat to go and no time to get there, so it slams into the ceiling in seconds and throttles hard. And then you set it on a bed or a cushion and cover the one vent it had. Now the heat can't even leave, and the chip's only move left is the one it always has: slow down and slow down more until the game is a slideshow. Same chip as the desktop, it just ran out of room to breathe. So go back to that stutter. It's not your laptop dying. It's not too old, it's not out of memory. Deep inside, a chip is switching billions of times a second, and every switch sheds a little heat. Run it hard enough, long enough, and the heat outruns the tiny fan trying to clear it, and the temperature climbs toward the one line the chip will not cross. So it makes a choice. It trades speed for survival, easing down just enough to stay under that line. The stutter isn't the chip failing, it's the chip refusing to cook itself. Which is why the only real cure is airflow. A clear vent, a cooler room, air that can actually move. Give the heat somewhere to go, and the speed comes right back. Let it cool, and the chip stops holding back. The game runs smooth again, exactly like an hour ago. It was never broken. It was just too hot to run flat out.
Everything you just figured out rests on something deeper, and that's the next video, so start there. Would you rather understand your computer than just use it? Then subscribe, and I'll see you next time, further down the stack.